welcome back. It's been a while since I did a video on Web Component DevTools, but here I am again. I've been working on it quite a lot during the last month. I've been on my summer vacation, so I've had a lot of time to put into open source and more so into Web Component DevTools on top of another couple of projects, but I'm not talking about those here. I'm talking about the next big things in Web Component DevTools, and I would like to show them with examples here. So what we have here is just a regular OpenWC starter project. It doesn't have anything else than, let's see, it doesn't have anything else than lit as its dependency. And also it doesn't have any other elements than the OpenWC starter you can see here. And I deleted one file from the starter, which was the custom elements JSON, because that's going to be the first thing we're showcasing here. So earlier, to get the best experience out of Web Component DevTools, you had to include the custom elements JSON in your project for the DevTools to find and use the data to give you more feedback. Well, in the next version of Web Component DevTools, I'm ditching that, and instead of that, we're just doing analysis live inside the DevTools. So if we open up the Web Component DevTools here, we see our OpenWC starter. Clicking on it, we see that we have a lot of data about our component. We have static properties and inherited properties, and those were a feature that was only for projects with a custom elements JSON. But from the next update onwards, it's going to be a thing for any project, really. Any project the custom element analyzer is able to analyze. Because from 0.1.6 onwards, the custom elements analyzer will be built in to the Web Component DevTools, meaning that the analysis is done as you click on the element on your Web Component DevTools tab. Also, a nice new update is that the inheritance parsing has been updated, so it actually goes down the inheritance tree as far as it can. So if we look at the methods here, we are extending lit elements, so we have all the methods of the lit element and updating element, which is our base class of lit element, listed here. We don't really need all these methods, but this just proves that the inheritance works backwards as long as you want. And also, from now on, it also works to dependencies. So lit element, of course, is a dependency in this project, instead of me just writing the whole source code. So we get dependency graphs and more information from our dependency modules also on top of our local modules. But going forwards, we have the analyzer running live on the browser as you use the Web Component DevTools. To showcase that, we can show just a regular counter example. So we create a property called counter to our element, and we initialize it here as 0. Saving the project, we see that our counter property has appeared on our Web Component DevTools. It's also listed as the attribute, even though it doesn't reflect at the moment. So to display the counter, we can go to render method and just write counter, and we can just add the counter in there. And now we can easily see it's set at 0, and we can modify the value here, and it already recognizes it as a number due to our analyzer. On top of that, a thing that wasn't possible without the analyzer or the custom elements JSON that is possible now is analyzing methods of your elements. So if we made a method called increment inside of our class, that just incremented the counter by 1. As we save, we see that the increment method appears in our DevTools, and we are able to call it. We see the counter incrementing, and we also see if the function would return a value, it's going to be logged into a console. So for example, we could log the current count, return the current count from the increment method, and as we call it, we get the JavaScript object listed into our console. So it's really easy to test out functions even without plugging them anywhere. And if we wanted to, for example, call the function from a button, we would of course use the click event handler, increment, and we would also see the property updating accordingly as we increment our value. If we also wanted it to reflect into the attributes, this being lit, we can just easily put the reflect attribute as true, and we see it's reflected here. And also we currently have the new preview feature here, where you can preview your web component in the web components panel instead of going into the elements and looking for it here. So you can easily see the counter saying 5 here, and if we increment it, it updates automatically. Another feature that was not available without the custom events manifest was event listening. So if, for example, our component launched an event every time it's incremented, counter, for example, an event called counter incremented maybe, and it maybe had a information about what the new count is. In a normal project, this wouldn't have changed anything in your DevTools, but since we are using the analyzer now, if we look at our element, we see under the events drop down that counter incremented has been added to the events here. And if we press the increment button, we see the event triggering, so we can easily observe all the events triggering. We can also call the function from the methods tab, and it displays the updates there, like it would if we press the increment button. And from the next update onwards, all of this will be in your project with 0 setup. You don't have to do anything else than just start your web component project and start developing. The analyzer will do the analysis for you without a hassle. It will also read JavaScript doc, so JS doc. For example, if we had a status enum here, well, of course, JavaScript doesn't have enums, but we could say it's we have a status enum that is either backlog, in progress, or done. If we saved it like this, we would see the status just as a backlog, and it would just be a string because it doesn't have any information about it. But if we wanted to document it as a union type, we could easily do that by just creating a JSDoc type and putting backlog pipe in progress pipe done in here. And as we save our project, we see that the text area has turned into a select field, and we can easily toggle between the values we have documented for our element, making debugging, changing the attributes so much easier. You can just document it once and then have a easy drop down to change the value. And it even updates in the DOM, of course. So if we just log it here, and if we put it into the lit element properties here, we can easily see that the status is backlog. And if we go here, we change it, it of course changes immediately. And And we can see here also that the attribute changes as we do it. So that's pretty neat. And I can't stress this enough, but all of this is available with no extra setup. As I showed you before, my project is just a OpenWC starter with no modifications, no nothing at all done to it afterwards. This update will be shipping after I've actually tested it on all the browsers and have concluded that it's stable and it's working 99.99% of the time. I hope you guys are excited for as excited for this as I am, because I'm really excited for this update, because it's going to be a game changer into the adaptation of Web Component DevTools, because it's going to be so much easier for people to adapt it into their workflow and into their projects. And well, as a neat little extra, I can showcase the Web Component DevTools functioning on a external site. So on external sites, the analysis is also run. So not only on localhost, but other sites too. It might not have all the properties and all the data because the site might be transpiled and minified, but it tries its best. And if we look into the Rocket search, we are able to see a lot of information. We see static properties on Rocket search element, and we are able to see data update in real time as we modify, as we interact with the page, or as we modify the page itself. And it doesn't have to rely on libraries like lit. So if you're using a web components library that doesn't use external libraries like generic components, it still functions as it should everywhere around the web. So whether you're developing or debugging a live site, it's going to be really helpful for you. If you're developing in local environments, you're going to get a lot more information since the DevTools has access to your node modules and such. But even on live applications, you can see a lot of information being displayed through the DevTools for your ease. So as I said, I hope this is something you're as excited about as I am, and I hope to get as much feedback on this as possible. So yeah, that's all for me. Bye.